So let's start from the beginning. What is therapy? Well, therapy is the idea that you need to go through life crying about the bad things that have happened to you, to some other mortal being as if they are God, and that somehow that makes things better. You need to go to some other normal human with their own problems, who's no better than you, and sit there and go, oh, this happened, that happened, and sit there and bitch about it. And that somehow this inaction is going to improve your life. But one of my largest problems with therapy is that it's an antithesis to my worldview. And my worldview is that action always wins. Momentum, speed, power, forward, forward, forward.
Okay, so today's episode is on therapy, why it didn't work for me, and why I believe for the most part it doesn't work for a lot of men. So let's tackle this shit. The first reason why I believe therapy doesn't work is that it has a systemic bias towards men and why it doesn't work. Therapy, for the large part, is something that has a large participants and practitioners that are women. About 90% of the people that practice it and are involved in it are women. That means a lot of the data, especially before, even though there's a push for more men to get involved and more men are, before, a lot of the research was based off mostly women. So a lot of the research will be somewhere between 70 to 60% women. So it means that it's skewed towards women. The results and what they believe works is women. Most of the practitioners themselves, when they say something works for their other clients, typically are women. Again, why is that important? Is this some sort of sexist argument that I'm doing? Absolutely not. But it's to say that women and men were raised differently, traditionally anyway, for the most part as well. And it plays up very heavily in therapy. Women are raised and nurtured to talk about their emotions, to go through their feelings, to discuss their feelings. They're far more capable of identifying and understanding their feelings. That's why being heard by them is so important, because they have these feelings and they want someone to also help them make sense of it. And are they crazy for feeling this? While men were raised, if they feel something, deal with it. If someone's bullying you, you don't sit around. We never sit around where I'm from, and most men sat around and spoke about why they're bullying, why it's unfair. Someone's bullying you, do something about it. It was either learn how to fight or just go out there and straight up fight. Men are very solutions-based, very strategy-based. And that's how we tackled most of our problems. So to sit around and talk about our feelings as a man, and most men, and myself initially, it's something that posed itself as a great struggle, and it was very counteractive to how I was brought up and raised. And this goes back to another thing. It's the idea of sitting around and talking about my feelings, talking as well as men as well, sitting around talking about our feelings feels alien to us. It doesn't provide us with answers. A lot of men say they go, when they have problems, they want solutions. And a lot of therapy and a lot of therapists are trained to sit and talk, listen to you, make you feel heard. Some do offer strategies, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's very much a listening and talking exercise. It's not something that is very solution-based and strategy-based. A lot of therapists are uncomfortable with giving strategies and solutions. So hence why it's very counteractive for men and very polarizing to what men want and traditionally look for when they have a problem. Another thing I'll say is that what helps create this barrier, not just for men, but black men as well, ethnic minority men, is the idea of strength. Strength is intrinsically linked to men. It's the same with beauty with women. Not saying beauty doesn't matter to men, not saying strength doesn't matter to women, but men have a very key understanding and a very key understanding of themselves connected to strength. Going to therapy, to me, when it was first suggested as well, it made me feel like weak. It made me question myself, and the idea of someone sitting and just listening felt like I was being pitied for. It felt like an acceptance of being weak. And at that point in my life, I felt I'd rather be dead than accept that I'm weak and I want to be pitied for. And I think I believe, in my own opinion, that a lot of men have this sort of theory and an idea that they'd rather be dead than someone pitied for them. They'd rather be somewhere in a cave then someone sit around and just pity them. It doesn't actually offer men the solution. These might sound like excuses as why not to go, but it doesn't work. Men do not want to be pitied for. They do not want to be just listened to. And a lot of men, and myself included, when I first went to therapy, was to do with feeling powerless. And I didn't want to sit and feel heard powerless. I wanted to feel powerful again. When my grandma passed is when I first broached the idea of actually taking therapy, and it's because I felt powerless to my emotions. I no longer could feel happy. I struggled so much with these things. And the idea of someone just listening didn't seem to make sense to me. And I think another thing connected to that is shame. Shame is something that will prevent many of us from doing things or doing things that we don't like. And I think in black culture, shame is used to kind of course correct us, keep us in line. And the idea of going to therapy didn't really bind with me. And I think coupled that with that black people, black community, especially my kind of community, we don't trust institutions. We have an intrinsic trust and distrust with institutions. I mean, we all heard the COVID jokes and the COVID this and da, but it links to what? We don't trust institutions. The review I did last week on Killers of the Flower Moon was about what? Well, not just about what, but a large part of it is how institutions let down ethnic minorities. You have Tuskegee, where black people will be injected with syphilis under the guise of something else. You've got the Killers of the Flower Moon with the Native Americans, the Osage tribe, being injected what they believe was diabetes medication, but it was actually something poisonous and degenerative to them. Then you have Tulsa, Wall Street, the massacre that happened there. Again, institution letting us down. And if you look at this institution of psychology and therapy, is heavily based around women. Like I said before, about 90% of them are women and about 4% of them are ethnic minority men. So the percentage of men is even lower. And I think that's just ethnic minority men. To say black, it might be in the low 2 percentile. Then to find a black person that talks like you and I, that doesn't sound like a over-polished black man, for lack of a better word, will be even more difficult. There are things like BetterHelp that help you select your therapist, but again, that's expensive and it's online based and it still doesn't bridge the gap. And like I said about it being 90% women, most of the women are white middle class women. Now, you connect that with shame. A lot of the emasculation, because that's a lot of reason why men go to therapy, is to do with his emasculation. And to a certain part was why I went. Who's been the biggest beneficiary of the equality and diversity push and movement? You would argue it's women, white middle class women. And to go into this institution to speak to someone who is the face of this oppressive symbol that I and other black men and other men feel doesn't vibe. It doesn't connect, fairly or unfairly. Symbolically, there's a pushback. And one thing I'll say about depression and antidepressant medication specifically, and you can look this up, is that antidepressant medication works about 60%. It's 60% effective. The other 40% is complete placebo. Now, why did I bring that up? I brought that up to say that in order to engage in therapy, in order to overcome these feelings that we have, you have to buy in. And if you're dealing with someone who symbolically represents something that emasculates you, that is a part of this emasculating society that you now feel you're a part of, it's not going to connect. And whether people like it or not, you have to first buy in. And you need a therapist that buys into you. And intrinsically and structurally and societal, this thing is not designed for us. One thing I will say as well, and I will touch on this later, is that when I was talking about the differences between men and women, is that a lot of men suffer from something called alexithymia. Alexithymia, and I will get onto this in a bit more detail later, is trouble with identifying your emotions. So you may feel something and you struggle to identify. A lot of men suffer from it to mild degrees. It's something that plagues a lot of people that suffer from autism, but it's something that I think is important to put out there. And I believe that the problems with therapy where it's very talk-based, again, it's centered around women who are far more adept and better, and society-wise as well has shaped them like this, to talk about their emotions, and men who look for solutions. I believe that's why things like self-help gurus have gone on the rise. I believe that's why things like Andrew Tate, things like that. People like Andrew Tate have come on the rise because for the simple fact that they offer solutions. And when men feel things and have problems, they're very action based. They're very physical based as well. And they look for a solution. If they're fat, they want to lose weight. If they fat and feel shame and feel embarrassment, go lose weight. That's what people say. We as men, we don't sit there and discuss why you feel shame, identifying these things, pulling it out. It's not something we do at all. And the reason I'll even go a step further, if you look at how men complement each other, is so interesting, especially when you juxtapose that with women who are, again, more adept with talking and identifying their emotions. That's why talk therapy works better for them. Guy does something good, whatever it is. What do guys do? A lot of what we do is something, I think the term is negative, positive reinforcement, where you kind of backhand compliment them. A guy does a good squat in the gym. You go, oh, is that you? Yeah, swear down. Oh, right. What? Can I buy silk? Are you going to buy silk or that? That's something that men do. While women, they big each other up more. Well done. You're so strong, blah, 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 blah. Very rarely do men go, when you do something good, well done, I'm so proud of you, you're so strong. Oh, that's not something we do. And if we do it, it's very sparingly. And when it does happen, and a lot of people can relate to this, aren't you left to feel a little bit uncomfortable? Like, whoa, I'm not used to this. When I started to have success in my therapy sessions, and my therapist said to me, I'm proud of you, well done. I thought, whoa, I'm not even that proud of me. Why are you being so proud of me? I was that proud of myself. But I had trouble associating myself to that feeling. It felt alien to me. It felt like something that wasn't intrinsic in my nature to admit that I was so proud of myself. And I think that's another big reason why therapy just seems so alien to men, especially ethnic minority men who have to put on such a strong mask in order to deal with society. You're raised from the start to be strong. You have to be stronger. You have to be better than everyone else in order to get the same level of success. Then to go down this path, which can almost seem like at times a little bit patronizing. Well done, I'm so proud of you. Can you open up? Can you expand more? Tell me why you feel that. It's like, yo, man, why do I feel shit? Because I feel shit in it. Like, why am I over explaining? Like, don't you get it? Now, although that might seem like someone who's disengaging, you have to understand that's their makeup. That's how they coped for so long. And it can be a great deal of a pushback. And something like self-help, going back to what I was saying earlier, and Andrew Tate's, they speak your language. They speak that straightness. They are very straight. You've got a problem, solve it. Strategies. If you've got social anxiety, get out there, own the room, look people in the eye. No, it's not. That's not bad advice. It doesn't miss out why you're socially anxious and how that can maybe still creep up with that advice and why you may struggle with that. That's where therapy is good. But because a lot of therapists aren't solution-based and aren't strategy-based, that's why men turn to things like that. A lot of this is linked to trying to uplift yourself out of these problems. And I still believe therapy works. But I believe that for it to work for men, especially black men, it needs tinkering. Similar to when I was learning how to drive, I had to look for different driving instructors. And people were telling me for a long time, use multiple. Don't just be fixed on one. But I couldn't be bothered. I didn't like the hassle. I thought it was a bit expensive. But if you are interested in taking therapy, which I do recommend, especially if you're listening to this, there's probably some sort of interest there, is shop. Don't be afraid to look around. Don't be afraid to say to them, hey, this isn't working for me. Can you maybe switch up your technique? They may say to you, why do you feel like it's not working? Just say, because it's not. I don't feel like I'm engaging. I want to engage, but there's a disconnect. Say, like I was saying earlier, you may suffer from a little bit of alexithymia, or you might be a little bit alexithymic. They may say, why? It's because just say, I can't identify with my feelings very well. That you're someone who needs strategies and solutions in order for it to feel practical and real. Again, I'll bring this up is that how men are so different to women in this sense about emotions is that a lot of men, especially myself, I found this in therapy, that when we're describing our feelings, we use very tangible and physical examples. What does he mean by that? What I mean by that is someone's describing how they feel. They're angry, they're pissed off, they're annoyed. They may say, I feel like banging out. I've heard that loads of times. When one of my friends, he broke up with his girl, and I said, how you feeling, my guy? And he said, I feel like banging out. Now, women would say, although they may give an example, they also explain their feelings. I feel overwhelmed. I feel like someone just died. I feel like I can't be happy again. Emotions. Guys, we don't really do that. We give examples. We say, I feel like my balls got cut off. I feel like I got rushed, or I feel like I'm going to bang out. We used physical examples. We're very physical in our nature. So it's why strategies and solutions gives us that tangible thing to harness and channel our emotions to. We do need to get better, like the women are so far ahead in discussing our emotions. But we also, when you're looking for a therapist, find someone who can help you bridge the gap. Talk about your emotions, but also bring a solution, you know? Don't be afraid to say to your therapist that this ain't working. Is there someone else that's more for me? Shop. That is my big key thing to this. Shop. Like I said earlier as well, men understand their emotions in a very physical way. We're very physical in how we feel it. And that's why a lot of men get diagnosed with other things other than just depression. Women tend to be diagnosed, have higher diagnosis for depression, anxiety, feeling-based things. Men for some, not for some reason, but men spike a lot higher in things like addiction. Some men go to gambling to deal with their pain, drinking, smoking. It's why I think smoking is so common in the Black community. It's a way of numbing yourself. So we spike higher in that. So we're very physical. We react to our feelings. So what I would recommend is something that helped me: yoga, meditation, Tai Chi. A lot of men have turned to, like I said earlier, a good one is go to the gym. But if you're like me, you already go to the gym. You may need something to add to that and compensate to that. I do recommend Tai Chi. Boxing is a good one. Yoga is excellent. It has one of the best research feedback for men who have suffered from depression and anxiety with coping with it, because we feel it in our body. And we know from studies already that depression, anxiety, they live in our body. They give us tangible physical things. People suffer from sweat, stomach aches. It's very, very, very much connected to your stomach. There are other before I forget, diet. Diet is very key. If you're trying to change it. I know it's a process, but one thing I would say is have a high protein diet, have good fats, things like avocados, omega-3s, peanuts. I'm allergic to nuts, so it doesn't really work for me. But things like that will also help that, because remember, your stomach is connected, your stomach sends more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your stomach. So what you put into your body scientifically has a greater effect on your mind than you would ever realize. So that is also very, very key in tackling and dealing with your emotions. Finally, I would say there's alternative forms of therapy. Forms of therapy such as somatic therapy. There's psychedelic therapy, which I engaged in, and it is very, very helpful. What that does is, like I said earlier about the placebo, it actually pushes past that bit. So you are in a state where you are actively ready to engage, opened up. So something that they discuss, open up the gateways to discussing these things. Somatic therapy is something that essentially, like I said about men being very physical compared to women in how they feel their emotions and their depression, is that they try to hit the points in which you feel your depression, and it has good results. It has very good feedback the research behind it is very good. One thing I will say is that research is somewhat a bit still anecdotal, can be pulled into question. Unlike therapy, still with men is still the best research and has the best results. But somatic therapy is still newer. There's still areas for it to improve, and it's still rigorous. And also, like I said, another big reason why, when you're talking about Black men in general, is the finances behind this. It's never cheap, especially the alternative methods, because they're typically not given by the NHS or businesses that can subsidize it. So that's something that to bear in mind. But if you're someone who is desperate for this and has some money laying around for it, it's something I would recommend. One thing I would say as well before I close is to all those men that are out there that are curious, are thinking about it, don't be afraid. Men, we do struggle with discussing our emotions and identifying it. It's one reason why men struggle with couples therapies, because the woman is so much more vaster and superior in discussing their emotions, because they are raised that way, that you feel overwhelmed, you feel bombarded. Do not be afraid. arm yourself. Men that are going to therapy doesn't make you weak. It means you're even further along in your journey of self-development and getting better. You're seeking external help. I couldn't accept that. Sorry for the outside noise. I couldn't accept that for a while because I thought it made me weak. But I realized the best people in life have mentors. This is my mind mentor. This is my emotions mentor. This is my gym mentor. This is my career mentor. This is my trading mentor. Think about it like that. They're a mentor. They're a guide. And you need to find the right one. Do not be afraid. Do not look at it as weakness. Do not look at it as anything like that. It's not that. But we do need to find the right one. The one I settled on was a younger black male who came from a very similar environment to me. I was very lucky to find him. He was funny enough at my uni, and he was doing that as not an apprenticeship, but it was in his first few years. That's how I was able to strike some sort of balance. And from there, I think I was able to find it, but it took me a while to find my space in therapy. So I would recommend going for it, but it's a process. You got to find the right one. Don't be afraid. Guys, that brings me to the end of the show. Thank you so much for that. I hope this wasn't too long because I'm always worried about that, but I hope you enjoyed it. Leave comments for me, please. I need feedback to make these videos better, to make them even more timely. If you want more, if you want vaster issues, if you want me to talk about this, that, whatever, let me know. Please leave feedback. Feedback helps me to help you, to give you better content. This is all it's about. Me trying to help you by opening myself up and do better. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm going on for too long. Goodbye, guys.